Okay, well, welcome everybody. Tonight is the introduction to U9 call. We're speaking specifically about women's field lacrosse for the 2025 OWFL season. My name is Hannah. I'll get into myself a little bit in a minute. But just before I get going, I want to highlight that this call will be recorded and shared along with all of the other intro to lacrosse calls that we're running this Thursday for U11 and Sunday for U13, U15, U19. So they will be available. The slide decks will also be shared. And when you're taking a look at the slide decks, I'm going to reference some links to videos and those types of things. When you're looking at the slide decks, a lot of that content is going to be found in the notes section at the bottom of the slide deck for the presenter. So won't have time to get through all of it tonight. But in case you want to kind of further your education, I've included and embedded all of that information into the presentation itself. So once it's shared, it'll be there for you guys. Yeah, all right, let's get going. We'll start with our landing sport acknowledgement. At this time, we'd like to give thanks to the creator for giving us the game of lacrosse. Lacrosse is medicine to the Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse. We want to thank them for sharing this medicine with the world. We would also like to give thanks to all First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and Inuit peoples as we all sit in their territories. We say thank you to the creator for giving us Mother Earth. She then gave us the tree that our sticks are made from. This is the true roots of the medicine we call lacrosse today. Thank you. My name's Hannah. I am the OWFL Director of Officiating. In keeping with tradition for the clinics that we run for our officials in Ontario on the men's side, the box side, the women's side, here's an embarrassing photo of myself as a child. I'm a huge film buff, and that was my mom's first Oscar party. But I am the Director of Officiating for the OWFL and for Lacrosse Canada for women's field. I started playing lacrosse when I was in high school, my grade 9 year at Sinclair Secondary in Whitby, and I played Blue Knights for a few years before switching to senior and playing for a couple of different clubs in the OWFL with the senior league that we used to have. I played Team Ontario when I was under 17 and continued my lacrosse career into university. I was a 2019 inductee into the Hall of Fame at Wilfrid Laurier, where I'm very proud to have then gone on to coach. On the officiating side of things, I'm obviously highly involved. I have completed my 4th World Cup this past summer in Hong Kong, which was an incredible experience. And that's me with two Australians and an American official on the 5-6 game at the end of the tournament, which is really exciting and a really, really wonderful experience. And beyond being a member of Lacrosse Canada and the OWFL, I am also on the World Lacrosse Rules Committee. My personal officiating motto and my kind of lacrosse admin motto is that no rule should be a secret. So I'm really dedicated to creating resources that will help people better understand our game. As we go through tonight's call, I encourage you to unmute yourself and interrupt me as we go. I find that these can be a little bit more productive if people have questions and ask them as we go through. There will also be time at the end of the call to ask questions. So feel free to take notes too if that's preferable. Last year, this took about 90 minutes. The U9 call is generally with a less experienced group of parents and kind of coaches or people that are new to the game. So we'll take our time and but try not to keep anybody longer than that 90 minutes. And if you have to run, again, this call will be recorded and shared. And with that, our learning outcomes for tonight. So my goals are to contextualize the game of women's field lacrosse and our sport's unique history. I'd like to provide everyone with a brief overview of the OWFL and our programming. We're going to introduce U9 specifically and the modifications that are specific to U9 from a development standpoint. I'm going to try and build some avenues for spectators and coaches to inform themselves and contribute to a positive environment for our athletes and our officials on the field. And finally, I really want to just foster an appreciation for this phenomenal game. So hopefully we can get through that tonight. We'll start with the history of our game. So we started with the land acknowledgement at the top of the call. Indigenous culture and community form the foundation of the game of lacrosse in all of its forms. So if you're on the call tonight and you've come from box or from men's field, it's the same as it is for women's. Lacrosse is considered to be a gift from the creator to the Haudenosaunee people, and we are very fortunate that they've then shared that with us. Into the 2000s, the women's field game was arguably the closest to the creator's game, not from a physicality standpoint, from a how it's played point, We didn't have lined fields, like boundaries on our fields, until 2005, and players still wear limited equipment to this day. Women's field lacrosse as a discipline appeared in Scotland in the 1800s, and it was popularized in Canada in the 1980s. A number of our officials were actually part of Canada's first national team, which is really cool. OWFL athletes have the opportunity to compete on the international stage for either Team Canada or Team Haudenosaunee. And lacrosse as a sixes discipline is Olympic bound in 2028. So some really cool things coming down the line in the women's field community in 2028 and as we get going here. And women's lacrosse, if you're new to our game specifically, is a unique sport. We are different from the guys. We're different from box lacrosse, which has both men's and women's playing. But if you talk to people who, like me, are highly involved in the admin side of the game and have been around for a while as players, as coaches, we really don't want to wear more equipment. We really don't want to play with box sticks. We really like this thing that we've built, and want to see the game progress. The women's game uses unique sticks with shallow pockets that we'll get into. It's fast paced and it's highly skilled. And I would say that while the play is like basketball and, defensive concepts in basketball translate really well into the women's field lacrosse, officiating this game is much like basketball and soccer combined, as you'll see tonight. It's not all going to be about officiating tonight, but rules come with officials, so we'll kind of keep it that way. And while there is room for change in the women's field lacrosse game, and as you will come to understand, there's always lots of changes happening in our game, we do like this sport the way that it's going and hope that it can continue in a positive light forward. The OWFL, and what does the OWFL do? Our mandate is to provide opportunities for girls and women of all ages to participate in women's field lacrosse in the province of Ontario. We currently are responsible for the rep programs that run on the women's side. And we do have provincial championships for all of our levels, including U9. That takes place at the end of July, or towards the end of July. Currently, we offer U9 through U19 programming. During the pandemic, we kind of were unable to maintain our senior programming, but hopefully you can get that back in the future. But for now, the Jewel Elite U19 League is kind of the pinnacle of our league. And we are responsible, as well as a board, for organizing the women's lacrosse component of Ontario Summer Games, which is always a really cool opportunity for our under 17 aged athletes. There was one in 2024, so the next one will be in 2026. I haven't heard where that's going to be, but it is held biannually. And our role as officials. So officials play a really important game role in keeping players safe and allowing players to perform to their maximum ability. Fouls in women's field lacrosse occur frequently throughout the game, both on and off ball. And some fouls result in a quick stoppage and restart of play, whereas some fouls require a little bit more setup. And being in a specific place on the field, or depending on who has the ball, the setups are all very different. Really dangerous or unsportsmanlike play results in stoppages of time and cards being awarded, like in soccer, and cards send somebody off the field immediately. And that can also happen to basically anybody involved with game. But officials do play that important role in keeping things safe. Keep having to go back and forth here. And who are our officiating crew? So the crew that you're going to see this summer, we generally have between 70 and 100 officials register every year. Most of our officials, over 40% over the last couple of years, have been under the age of 18. And if you're a parent or a coach in U9, anticipate seeing a lot of young officials on your games. This is the level that they start out at, even though I think that it's actually one of the more complicated levels to officiate. But this is what we're tasked with. Some of them will be as young as 14 years old. That's when you're age eligible to become an official in Ontario. About 25% of our officials are university age. We have a ton who play in the NCAA. So they come back after their NCAA seasons and work with us in the summer. Officiating is a great way to increase your lacrosse IQ. And only about 30% of our officials are adults, true adults out of university, working other jobs, that type of stuff. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that we have very few guys officiating with us, only 3 men on the officiating side for women last year. We're really proud to be female group, and take a lot of cues from our athletes on that side, which is really exciting for us. You will see an official on most of the U9 games this year sitting at the table next to the scorekeepers. And if you scorekeep, you'll probably have a conversation with this person. They're our mentor group. And we just like to highlight for our under 9 parents that there are lots of very capable people around the field that represent the officials from an older capacity than your 14-year-olds you might have on your games. And represent the league and are very happy to answer questions after games or at appropriate times. The mentor for U9, U11, and U13, their responsibility on Sundays when these games are taking place is to provide the on-field officials with feedback and create a positive environment. So we ask coaches to direct their comments and feedback towards the mentor to give the officials a little bit of breathing room on the field. So if you're like, man, I don't understand what's happening, I thought the rule was X, and then they're doing Y, hopefully that mentor can intervene at an appropriate time and help them work through how to be better, because these are our newest officials. Tonight, as we go through and you get to learn a little bit more about women's field lacrosse, I'm going to feel a little bit like my man Charlie Day here, because there are a lot of things that may seem overly complicated. There are a lot of things that might be like, why does this happen this way? And hopefully I'll be able to provide you with some context as to why our game is this way, or to what the logic is behind some of the modifications that we've introduced for under 9. I love this game, and despite it making me feel this way a little bit, looking for Pepe Sylvia, I do believe that investing your time in doing something like this course tonight can hopefully set you up for a lot of greater understanding of the game moving forward. So let's dive in. There are a whole bunch of different types of women's field lacrosse played across the world. World Lacrosse writes the rule book that we generate our rules from. Lacrosse Canada does not currently have any modifications from the World Lacrosse level, but as you'll see, things descend and everything's filtered down. So if the rule book and the rules are set by World Lacrosse, then Lacrosse Canada is beneath that and gets to feed in. And then beneath that, you have the Ontario Lacrosse Association represented by the OWFL. So then we can choose to make our own decisions. And we have implemented like development-oriented rule modifications for U9. But then you might take your U9 team, or maybe when the kids are a little bit older, you might take a U13 or U15, U19 team down to the US, and you're going to see them playing with a totally different rule set. They have not only do they play with a World Lacrosse rule book at World Lacrosse events, but they have youth lacrosse. Tournaments will have specific rules. The US high school has its own rule book. NCAA lacrosse, where we get a lot of our resources from. And it's, I think, the easiest version of the game to watch if your kids are interested in kind of understanding more from watching. Great content available on YouTube. But they have a totally different rule set right now. And then there's also, unfortunately, the Athletes Unlimited league folded, which was the pro women's league in the US. It had a couple of Canadians playing in it, but the WLL, which is the Women's Professional Sixes League, is up and running. So, and beyond this, everywhere else in the world, they're playing World Lacrosse rules with different modifications. So definitely a ton of types of our game around the world. And then the biggest thing that you'll see is that it all kind of comes down to the field. So not only does World Lacrosse have its stipulations going down, but compared to box lacrosse, men's field lacrosse sixes, there are different types of fields. And what we've done for U9 and U11 is made a really concerted effort to kind of like, if you're playing younger, like Timbit soccer or like 3v3 hockey for the first couple of years of development, past that, but before you get into a really like more physical version of our game, we've shortened the field, made the field smaller, and hopefully uncomplicated some of the bigger field aspects of the sport to bring you a more condensed version of the women's field game. It gives the kids more touches with the ball, less space to just have to run. They got those little legs. We want to maintain, quality running for an under 9 player in a 40-minute game. But the field on the right is the field that we're going to be using for under 9. If there's any people on the call that were involved with OWFL last year, first major change here we have a whole whack of changes that came through from World Lacrosse over the winter, is that these field lines are in play for all levels of the game moving forward. So this lovely semicircle here with the lines inside that look like a fan, this is in play for under 9, under 11, every level up through Jewel. And we'll get into helping us like understand what the different parts of the field are called, because they all have specific names. But U9 this year is going to be played on a 74 meter by 36 meter field. We've made the field 4 meters longer than it's been in past, to accommodate these new field lines, and hopefully provide the athletes with a field that is going to look a little bit more similar to what they're playing with as they age out of U9 and U11 and get to a full-size field at U13. To compare, this is what the full-size field looks like. So again, similar field lines, just a much bigger midfield area, and a full field that we use at World Lacrosse events and at Jewel U19, U13 is 100 meters by 60 meters. But let's dig back to U9, U11. To quickly kind of go through this, I apologize, the numbers are out of line. I use these diagrams for my new officiating clinics where the kids have to tell me what they are. But very simply, we're looking at end lines along the ends of the field. We're looking at sidelines on either side. Step on the line, you're out of bounds. We're looking at a substitution area that is shared across the center line. And that substitution area, as soon as somebody steps completely off, somebody at any part of that substitution area can step onto the field. So 2 feet off, 2 feet on. That's how that sub area works. Again, extends across the field. So you can go to your opponent's side to substitute. The third one is the center circle. Big center circle, we keep our draws set up in the middle of the center circle, and 2 teammates from the center player can be on the outside. They'll line up right in the middle. This line right down the middle, that center line of the field, is our restraining line. So we use that to manage our offsides. And then once we get inside our scoring area, we'll look at a bit of a better diagram in here, but there's very specific naming conventions to all of these things. The only other thing I want to flag before I move on to the fan and to the marking areas is this red dotted line. So this was something that we hoped to trial last year, and it didn't necessarily go the way we wanted it to. But as spectators in under 9 and under 11, we're always asking that parents sit 4 meters back off of the field sideline. And this line should be painted, ideally in a different color, so that there's a visual reminder. But it's very easy for these athletes and for our young officials to be completely overwhelmed by somebody sitting right next to the field. We want to give everybody some space. So this parent line, we ask you to respect throughout the course of the season to give everybody on the field a little bit more breathing room. The marking areas are the scoring areas of the field, and the field lines help us identify areas where players can set up free shots and those types of things to serve penalties that occur within this space. So there are generally 2 dots beneath this space, and the dots are used for any administration of penalties that occurs below the goal lines here. So any of this white space below one of the fans, that's where it's going to be set up on the nearest dot. Otherwise, we're talking about the 15-meter marking area, which on a U9 field, just up to a regular size field, is 15 meters from the center of the goal line to the top. We're going to talk about the 11-meter marking area, which is this blue space. Anytime somebody gets, we call them a free position, we're going to clear this entire area out, and on the whistle, the players get to run in and take a shot with the defense crashing around them from that space. And then on the far right here is the fan, and the 11-meter fan is something we'll come back to when we talk about one of our specific fouls called 3 seconds. So we'll revisit that at the end of the call. But those are the marking areas on the field. And again, scoring is generally going to happen in this space. The hash marks also have names, not hugely important, but your under 9 players, it's very difficult as a coach from the sideline to direct an 8-year-old. So if your 8-year-olds know what these lines on the field are called, hopefully it's a little bit easier to tell Susie, Susie, go stand on the center hash. Great, we're all on the same page. So the hash marks, again, are named. The center hash is in the center, and then going to the left or to the right, it's the same naming conventions. You have first hash, second hash, third hash. This is called the goal line extended. It's the goal line extended out. And the hash along this line is only used for penalty administration. You're never going to set up a foul there. It's only to keep players out of this space. The third hash is only ever for defensive players to get set up next to the ball, because let's say there's a foul that we're setting up on the second hash right here. Defensive players are always going to be entitled to the adjacent hash marks. And then at the 4 down here, this is called the corner. Any goal circle violations against the defense are going to get set up at this spot. So lots of different lines so far. Stay with me. The only other space we need you to worry about, and this one's more important, this is called the advantage flag area. We call it the AFA for short. And the advantage flag area is important for 2 reasons for U9. This is the space where officials are allowed to use their flags. And a flag is kind of like a referee in hockey putting their hand up in the air. They've seen a penalty happen, but they want the play to continue until a shot is taken. So that's what our flags are for. You might not see a lot of U9 officials use their flags unless they've been around for a couple of seasons. But that's what this area is for. If there's a foul in this area, but the player who got fouled is still moving towards the net, the official might pull that flag. That's where it gets its name from. But the reason for U9 that this is a really important space is that this is the one space on the field, these 3 areas. So you have your 15-meter marking area up top, you have your goal circle inside, and then the third area is that space below the goal line extended. If you're in any one of those 3 blue areas, in that space is the only time on the field a defensive player is allowed to make contact and play direct one-on-one defense with contact against an attacker. Usually we call it crashing onto the ball. So you might leave the person you're responsible for and turn to try and play defense on the ball as it's driving towards the goal. So this area for U9, very important, because this is where you're allowed to play defense with some contact. So that means my forearm or my hand, my fist might make contact with the opponent's arm or forearm. So new officials, again, probably won't wear their flags all that or use their flags all that often. But again, understanding that this is the advantage flag area, it's important for some fouls that we're going to visit tonight. So that's that. And the parent line. Again, why? Why is all of this happening? Why are there different variations and why are there so many rule changes? And I haven't even told you, if you're returning from last year, there were 25 rule changes that came down the pipe from World Lacrosse. I will not burden you with all 25. They don't all impact U9, but we do want people to be aware that this is a rule change year, so some things are going to be changing. And why this is happening is because our sport is growing. It's definitely still finding its identity and growing massively on the world stage. I think that we're really kind of close to the final version of what women's field lacrosse is going to look like in the long term. There's definitely still going to be some changes coming down the road. Things like a shot clock, that's coming into our game very shortly. Jewel already has it in play. But despite being an Indigenous sport in its origin, women's lacrosse also still has this history of being like very prim and proper British private school system in its history. And our sport is not that anymore. It is very much moving beyond that. We're making big strides to simplify rules and consolidate rules amongst box lacrosse, men's and women's field lacrosse and sixes, so it's a little bit easier to move between disciplines. And all of that's happening with player safety in mind. So why? Because there's good stuff coming down the road, and hopefully you'll bear with us through it. And we're hopefully here to educate, to help through the changes. So it's time to get going into the absolute gritty part of tonight's call, which is all about the rules of the game and how the game is played at U9. So if we think of real lacrosse that we might play at like a World Cup, or that we'll see in the jewel level of our game, it's going to be played with a hard yellow rubber ball. I was a goalie. it hurts. So at U9, how are we going to kind of make that a little bit easier on our athletes is we're going to play with this pink squishy ball. It might be tougher to catch that ball, but I promise you, your athletes coming out of U9 are going to have some of the best, softest hands and be able to catch anything that comes their way as they progress up through the levels. I will note that if this is your kid's last year in U9, they're a major this season, U11 is shifting to a hard yellow ball. So that's going to be coming down the rope for you guys in 2026 in your first U11 year. So U9 is now the only level of play that's going to use that soft pink squishy ball. It is going to be played with 10-minute quarters versus the regular 15-minute quarters. We're still going to do just like regular lacrosse. We're going to have a draw, which is 2 sticks back to back up in the air, up and away on the whistle. We're going to do a draw at the start of every quarter. But in U9, we are going to let the goalies clear the ball like they do in sixes after a goal is scored, to keep the play going. You'll watch some draws in U9 and be like, well, that didn't go very well. And that's okay. It's a highly specialized position if you want to see it done well. It's also hard to do with a pink ball. So we want the goalies to clear the ball and get more touches on the ball. We want the play to keep moving a little bit faster. And that's why we just do draws to start each quarter. U9 lacrosse is going to be played as sevens. So it's 4 attackers, 4 defenders, or 4 attackers playing against 4 defenders, plus the goalies. And then we hold two players behind the center restraining line to maintain the onside offside. So it's only ever 4v4 plus a goalie at U9. And then 2 players from each team will stay behind the restraining line. And like in real lacrosse, attack and defense are very similar to basketball. If anyone's been watching March Madness, I love it because it's so interesting to see. I mean, I know there's going to be some motion trends coming into lacrosse this summer because so many of the big NCAA Madness teams were running motion offenses the same way that we do in lacrosse. It's person-to-person defense mostly at U9. I have not seen I haven't seen a U9 team run a zone defense, but zone defense in lacrosse is definitely possible. And we have a scoring area very similar to the key in basketball. We have an 11-meter fan. So we'll come back to that fan when it gets talking about that 3 seconds call, as I mentioned. Equipment. So if you're new to the sport and you don't really know where to go for equipment, we don't technically have any equipment sponsors in the OWFL. So if you wanted to send me an email, owflofficiating@gmail.com, I'd be very happy to recommend a sports store that sells women's lacrosse equipment in your area. They are all over Ontario. We're pretty fortunate. But what does your athlete need to play the game this summer? First and foremost, they have to have a stick. And the stick has to be legal specifically for women's field lacrosse. We're the only sector that uses our own equipment specific to the women's field game. You're going to see some common brands pop up. I would say over the last couple of seasons, definitely the most popular brand is Gate, STX, String King, Under Armour, all kind of like still good. There's lots of great products out there. Gate tends to be the one that people lean to, but those are also the most expensive sticks on the market. So your under 9 players might hate me for saying this, but they don't necessarily need the $320 Gate stick. My recommendation to parents is to not cut their sticks. You are allowed to. Technically, they need to be 90 centimeters, but you can cut them if your kid is on the shorter side. But I wouldn't recommend that. They're going to get used to playing with something that's too short for them, and they're actually taking away their advantage from being able to reach to grab a loose ball. In U9, attempted passes count. So we want them to be able to touch the ball, to reach for the ball in the air. I would not recommend cutting sticks. Pocket depth is shallow in our sticks compared to men's lacrosse or box. And I'll show you a little bit of a comparison on that in a second. Beyond having a stick that's legal for women's field specifically, athletes must wear a mouth guard. It can be any color. We used to have this really dumb rule. It couldn't be white or clear. You can wear a white and clear mouth guard. That's new this year. And also, as of last year, goggles are mandatory. So if you have questions about goggles in this document, I've linked to that OLA ruling that athletes have to wear goggles. Obviously goalies don't, but players on the field do. And if you have sport glasses, you will see a picture of ones that are legal for OWFL will consider those goggles, but only specific kinds. So please check that out. Recommend that your athletes wear running shoes, turf shoes or cleats. No metal bottoms are allowed. So I don't know if there's other sports still using metal bottom cleats, but they're not permitted in the OWFL. Most U9 games I'm going to say are going to be played on grass. So having some shoes that have a little bit of grip on them is great, but whatever your athlete's most comfortable in. And then athletes who are field players can wear close fitting gloves if they like, but that went out of style a long time ago. And I don't really see a benefit to it. It's a sport without a lot of equipment. So some equipment brands are like, well, let's try and get people wearing close fitting gloves. It's not necessary. Unless it's cold, but it's hot in the summer now. Coming back to our sticks, pocket depth is what officials are going to look for if there was ever a request for a stick check. You might remember if you've been around the game or if you're maybe coming back to the game after a break or a hiatus, we used to check every single player's stick before every single game. We no longer do that. There's also no longer a list of sticks that is specific for women's field lacrosse that make them legal. In the rule book, there's a list of things that you have to be able to go by, but my rule of thumb is that if you're buying from one of those common brands, your stick's going to be legal. And then the only thing that the players, the coaches, parents need to be aware of is the pocket depth. So if I drop a ball in your stick, I need to be able to see the top of the ball from one end of the stick to the other. So from the top edge of the stick head to the bottom of the stick head, that ball is going to move freely back and forth. And I need to be able to see it. That's how we judge our legality. So the stick on the left that's green, I can see that ball over the side of the stick, over the sidewall. Whereas on the right, I can't see that ball above the sidewall. So the stick on the right is an illegal pocket. It can be fixed, but if it's called during a game, then your team might lose possession of the ball. It's the responsibility of coaches and of players to maintain their stick's legality throughout the entire game because stick checks can be requested by the opponent. And just to take a look at what our sticks look like in action versus maybe what one of the men's field, the box or men's sixes sticks look like, you have a much shallower pocket. It makes it easier to check the ball out of our sticks. But what that's done is that is really pushed the athleticism of our athletes up. And you see some really cool stuff happening with women's field players who have had to really finesse their way around defenders, not get stick checked, all that type of stuff. It's just harder to get the ball off of somebody with one of those deeper pockets, but our athletes have really gone, the athleticism's really improved to see how well they can defend their own sticks now. And that Annabelle Child on the left plays at Harvard. I believe she grew up playing in Oakville, so an OWFL alum, really cool. Let's talk a little bit about goalies. We won't stay too much on this because your team may or may not have like all right, everyone's trying goalie once. You never really know at U9. So for everybody, but maybe for some parents more than others, this is the equipment that is absolutely mandatory for goaltenders. So just like fit players, they must wear a mouth guard. It is absolutely mandatory. There's no exceptions. They have to wear a lacrosse helmet and it has to have a dangling throat protector. I'll show you a photo of what that looks like, but let it be known that we used to let teams get away with wearing hockey helmets or probably hockey helmets were the most common, but moving forward, and all of the clubs have been made aware of this, it does have to be a lacrosse helmet specifically by our rules for insurance purposes as well. So it can no longer be a hockey helmet. It does have to be a lacrosse specific helmet. Goalies need to wear some type of chest protection. Most of the goalie gear that you'll buy these days has like an EKG, like heart protection thing to really provide added protection to our goalkeepers. And then they also have to wear gloves. In the past, gloves were optional, if you can imagine it. Wouldn't recommend not wearing gloves, and now you by rule have to wear gloves. And those can be padded gloves. They kind of look like hockey gloves. Generally speaking, for our goalies, they have to abide by the 3 centimeter rule. So any equipment protecting their body, protecting anything but their head, needs to be no more than 3 centimeters off of their body. And most officials are going to carry a measuring tape to be able to check that out and hopefully make sure that we keep the game fair. So what legal equipment looks like, and again, this is Cassidy. She's just about to graduate from Oregon University in the NCAA, and she, I believe, also grew up playing in Oakville. But a helmet intended for lacrosse with a dangling throat guard. This is what we're talking about by dangling throat guard. Hockey dangling throat guards, fine. Lacrosse helmets, mandatory. Gloves, and if your gloves have plastic added onto them in the manufacturing process, that's totally fine. You can't add plastic additional protection on top, but if they come built that way, those are fine. These are intended to protect the top of a goalie's thumb because it's often facing out towards the shooter. Shin pads, not mandatory. I think in the past, because U9 has that pink softball, a lot of goalies have said, I don't need them. But if your kid has to play goal and is a little nervous, more equipment's not a bad way to go. I've also seen people wear soccer shin pads. I started by wearing baseball catchers shin pads, which were super fun to run in. So it doesn't have to be that clunky, but so long as it's within 3 centimeters of the body, it's perfectly fine. Also, this is one of those new STX chest protectors that has the additional like shield tech to protect your heart. These are good. I'll see a lot of under 9, under 11, and under 13 goaltenders wearing a lot of like shoulder pads, like in hockey, or added elbow protection. Again, your kid's choice. I don't believe that that's necessary. You won't see higher level goaltenders wearing it, but we want your kids to be comfortable and want to play goal. It's a super fun position in our game. So whatever they're comfortable in, so long as it abides by that 3 centimeter rule. And you can wear padded pants. This STX is a very popular lacrosse brand. These ones are intended for goalies. I've also seen people wear like football padding in the past. It's 3 centimeters and you're good. And lacrosse goalie sticks, legal. Those like kind of rounded ones, perfectly legal. There are very large wood sticks are legal in women's field lacrosse still. There's a women's specific field stick from Patterson and other brands, but the ones that are super triangular intended for goalies, those are not legal. Otherwise, again, most sticks that are legal for men's field for goalies are going to be legal for women's field, like this STX one. Some stuff that's illegal, again, these super huge triangular goalie sticks, box lacrosse equipment, any hockey helmets. Those things are now going to be illegal for our goalies. In terms of resources, again, lots of information coming at you guys tonight. I do want to direct you to where you can find a lot of this information laid out for you. So if you visit our website, it's owfl.org/officials. I've created a bunch of digital resources that will hopefully help contextualize all the stuff that we're going through tonight. And if you're ever like, what was she saying about that thing, about the rule? This is where you're going to want to go. So the number one document that I find people take advantage of is the OWFL rule modification summary. It takes all of our divisions U9 through Jewel and outlines specifically how they are different from each other. So not all fouls are going to be laid out here, but it's going to tell you if you're going from one level to the next level, what to expect in terms of differences and changes. The other thing that I've done is there's a third page this year. It outlines all of the rule changes that came through the pipeline from World Lacrosse last year if you want to read them. But hopefully tonight we're giving you guys a good enough summary that that's not super necessary for U9. So do feel free and feel welcome to check that out. Again, it's all linked in this document here. The other documents that I think you would definitely want to take a look at are the U9 rule modification document. Coaches who are coaching U9, highly recommend you guys have a copy of this, as well as our OWFL common questions from coaches document. We're not going to get into that tonight specifically. One highlight that I really couldn't find another place to put it in this presentation from that common questions for coaches is that new this year, coaches can call live ball possession timeouts. It's very difficult to call timeout in our game, but now you can call possession live like in basketball. but you cannot have possession of the ball inside the advantage flag areas. So your athlete moves out, timeout, you get 2 timeouts per game. So that hasn't changed, but you can call it on a live ball now, so long as your team has possession outside of either advantage flag area. So those types of things are highlighted in these documents. Again, please feel free to visit. I encourage you to visit our website to access those resources as we go through. So getting into the fouls and turnovers, this is what we'll go through. We'll talk a little bit about change of possession. We'll get into the 4 foul categories. So there's restraining line violations, which are offsides. There's goal circle violations, and then there's minor fouls, which are generally speaking about keeping things fair. And then there's major fouls, which is about keeping players safe. And with exceptions, fouls when they occur in women's field lacrosse, the person who committed the foul is going to go 4 meters either behind or to the side of the person they fouled. So we're always going to, you're going to see a lot of, somebody might get pushed, whistle's going to go, and then that's a major foul. So because there's contact involved, that player that committed the push foul is going to go 4 meters behind. So let's dive in. First, there's a bunch of instances that are not fouls, but are change of possessions in U9 lacrosse. So first and foremost, after every single goal, the team that got scored on is going to be given the ball. The goalie's going to fish the ball out of the net, and then on the whistle, they're going to have be able to clear the ball out to their team. And unless the attack is super quick, generally speaking, they're going to have a free clear, because every time the attacking team scores, all 4 of those attackers then have to run back to the center line and tag up to give the defense an opportunity to get the ball out of their zone. If one player doesn't do that, and let's just say they stay right on top of the goalkeeper, then the defensive team is going to be given the ball at center, and they're going to get to start right from the center line. Doesn't happen very often. The U9 kids are usually pretty good about, we score, woo, get back up and play defense, which is kind of cool and very basketball-esque. There's also a change of possession when somebody goes out of bounds. So ball is passed out of bounds, or somebody in possession of the ball steps on the sideline or on the end line. That's a change of possession to their nearest opponent. And when that happens, the nearest player is going to pick up the ball and come onto the field up to 2 meters in bounds, and then they can just start to go. Boundary balls, you don't have to wait for a whistle to restart play. It's called self-start. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. When there's a shot, something that's really cool about women's lacrosse is that we encourage people to chase down rebounds. So if the official yells shot, which means that there was a shot on goal, and the ball goes out of bounds, the player that's closest to the ball, where and when it exits the field, they are going to be granted the ball back. So from a defensive standpoint, from an attacking standpoint, it makes shots really competitive around the end lines, which is really cool. So if someone just steps on a boundary line, it's a change of possession. If somebody shoots the ball and it goes out of bounds, it's nearest to at the point where it goes out of bounds. So not just nearest to the end line or the sideline, nearest to where the ball goes out of bounds. And then at U9, we're going to have this 1 attempted pass rule. Let's get into that in more detail in a second. Once you get up to U11, athletes have to complete a pass before they're allowed to score. But in U9, all teams have to attempt 1 pass. And I bet this year we'll see more caught passes than we have in the past as well. The athletes just get better and better every season. And the other rule I want to talk about in more depth is the 5-second rule. So let's dive into both of those. First and foremost, let's go 5 seconds. So you're going to find out tonight that there's no stick checking in under 9. It's a skill that we introduce at the U13 level once the kids move to the bigger field space. And so what we realized as an organization is that, great, no problem about not having stick checking. These kids cannot control their bodies for the most part, which is wonderful. But we need to reward good defense. And so what we came up with was this 5-second rule. So what's going to happen when somebody is in good defensive positioning is that the official is going to count to 5. And if the official counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and says 5, and the player who's in possession of the ball still has possession of the ball at 5, that's a turnover to the defender that was playing good defense. There's three things that have to happen for us to consider a defensive player to be playing good defense. And this number 49 for Burlington and the picture on the right, they're absolutely in a great defensive position right now. This is why I threw this in here. They have to be goal side of the ball carrier, which means it's the ball carrier, them, and then the goal. Anywhere around that goal circle, it can be called anywhere on the field. But goal side of the ball carrier, they have to be within a stick length of the ball carrier so they could basically touch the ball carrier with their stick if they needed to. And their stick has to be up. And if they do those three things for 5 seconds, they're getting the ball back. I would say that this is something that as an officiating group, we really try and nail into the kids, but it's very challenging. We hear lots of people counting from the sidelines, which is always charming, but we are really working with our officials to try and get them to recognize this sooner and be a little bit more confident to count out loud to 5. And we try and pair an experienced official with a less experienced official or a less confident official. So this is something that hopefully all summer you're going to be hearing people count to 5. That means good officiating and that means good defense. And let's take a look at the rules modification summary document for U9. To read about the attempted pass rule, because this has been edited for this year. Through my own personal experience, through a lot of conversations with our under-9 coaches from last year, the U9 attempted pass rule needed some work. It was very complicated. And we wanted to try and simplify it. We wanted to try and make the pass rule a little bit more like real lacrosse. And so this is what we've come up with this year. So if people are like, that's not how it was called last year, correct. It's totally different. But hopefully in better keeping with the spirit of what we're trying to achieve with U9. So at the bottom of the screen here, one overhand pass is required before an attacking team may take a shot on goal or potentially score, period. A caught pass counts as their one pass. And when a team gets that one pass, the official's hands are both going to go up in the air and they're going to hold up a 1. Once an official is holding up the 1, the attacking team may shoot. All good. That's great. In addition to a caught pass counting, an attempted pass will count. And so we've defined an attempted pass as follows. When an overhand pass makes contact with a teammate's stick and then drops to the ground, the pass will count if that teammate picks up the ball after one or a couple of bounces, or if the ball rests on the ground, so long as nobody else so long as it's not contested by anyone other than their immediate defender, including their own teammates. So, sorry, I want to break this down. So new this year, if I'm passing to Susie, Susie has to touch my pass with her stick for it to count as an attempted pass. What was happening in past years is that unfortunately people were being taught to just throw over somebody and then that person would run onto the ball. But that's an awful way to lose the ball in real lacrosse. So we don't want to give 50-50 balls up. So we're going to try and encourage the athletes to actually catch and to make contact with the ball with their stick. And then if that ball doesn't stay in their stick, if they drop it, but they pick it up off the bounce, or if they drop it and they pick it up off a ground ball, they run through the ground ball and pick it up, that is going to count. As soon as somebody besides their immediate defender, so the person immediately playing defense on them, because we usually play 1-to-1 defense, as soon as somebody else from the other team or their own team creates a bit of a scrum, the pass is dead. That is not what an attempted pass is, and there's too many people. It's too difficult to confirm if the pass is picked up. There's a lot of things happening. Who touches the ball? We're not going to get into that. So new this year, it has to make contact with the whoever it's intended for, or for a teammate's stick. And then if it drops the ground, so long as nobody challenges for it besides maybe the person immediately playing you, that's going to count. So hopefully that's a little bit more clear this year. And hopefully it's encouraging some good coaching decisions from the sideline that are more in keeping with how we would want to see an athlete come into U13 and be better prepared to play the real version of this game. The pass or the attempted pass has to be picked up in the attacking end of the field. So if a goalie clears the ball to a teammate in the attacking end and it touches their stick and it drops to the ground and they pick it up, that's going to count for sure. And if the ball is passed from just beneath the restraining line into the attacking end from a teammate, that's going to count as well. I believe I have a question in the chat about this. Does a body ball count as well? It has to. So one of the parents or one of the people on the call just messaged me and asked, does a body ball count as well? The answer is no. It has to, by rule, contact a teammate's stick to be considered a potential attempted pass. That question is interesting though, because as we get into minor fouls coming up, body balls are no longer a foul. So it's great that they, maybe the pass comes at me and it hits my stick and then hits my body and hits the ground. Because it contacted my stick, I would count that as the official. But if it hits me in the chest, doesn't touch my stick, and then falls to the ground, that will not count. That is not going to count towards our one caught pass or one attempted pass in the game. Hopefully that helps answer that question. The ball is live off a rebound. So if both officials have their hands up in the air and a shot is taken, the goalie makes a save, but then the attack gets the rebound. The attack may absolutely take another shot right away. So long as the defense hasn't possessed the ball, then they may continue. Awesome. And one pass is automatically going to be granted anytime the defensive team fouls within the advantage flag area. Within the 15-meter area. So if the defense fouls above goal line within that huge 15-meter semicircle, that is automatically going to grant you a pass. That's any of the 4 fouls. So majors, minors, restraining line violations, offsides, and goal circle violations. We're always going to grant the attack that one because we don't want to encourage defense to foul. And then what happens if an attacker shoots without having that one pass? It's definitely going to happen. If a goal is scored, it's no goal. It's hopefully from the officials going to be a huge no goal single. They're going to blow back that goal. We're going to make it very clear to the table, no goal scored. And the ball is going to restart with the goalie. If the ball maybe doesn't go in the goal, if a team shoots, but they miss the net, but they didn't have that one pass yet, it's also going to restart with the goalie. We don't want to be shooting until we're eligible to shoot with that one pass. This is not a foul. It's just a change of possession if somebody violates that rule. But that is our one attempted pass rule. It's a lot. We had a committee of coaches this year help us with how we were going to implement the rules. And this is the rule we talked about the most. We had a lot of discussion on 2 clubs in their winter training sessions ran practices with this rule in play with their scrimmages and had good feedback. So we're hoping that this is the right direction for this rule. And then down the road, we're hoping that, U9 gets the skill level where we don't have to have an attempted pass rule. But for now, we have a lot of new athletes, a lot of people fresh to the game. Your motor skills are not that refined at under 9. You're going to see some really talented U9 teams this summer, but there's also going to be players who are brand new to the game. So we want to create some type of parity. And this is one way that we can do that in addition to that 5-second rule on defense and in addition to goalies clearing the ball after goals. Any other questions about the attempted pass rule before we move on? Okay. And thank you for the question that came through while we were chatting. This way. Offsides. Pretty simple. We won't spend too much time here. We play with 4 attackers, like the team in teal, and 4 defenders and a goalie on defense. And then the other players are going to stand behind this restraining line. If they step on that line, they are technically offside. Now, both officials are tasked with looking forward to count. So if little Susie's picking flowers at center and, puts one foot on the line, we don't really love to hear they're offside because it's not impacting the play. But as soon as somebody's driving towards center or there's a turnover, if somebody's stepping on that line, then we're going to just encourage them to, that's when you'll probably hear a whistle and it won't just be the encouragement. But as coaches, please, we want to find some way to educate our athletes that on the line equals offside. So it's actually what I prefer to teach when I was still in my coaching days is to stand about a foot back from the line so that if you have to reach over, you can. So that if you get excited, you have a little bit of breathing room. So if the line is here, I would actually prefer my athletes to stand this far back. You may reach over the line. So this player in yellow and this player in teal, let's say there's a loose ball that comes up here, they could absolutely come up to that line and reach over with their sticks, so long as their feet don't cross that line or stand on that line. Otherwise, it's going to be their offside. So that's that. And because the sub box is shared, there's no need for a team to go offside while they substitute. I'll see some coaches step into the sub boxes, try and get their athletes to not go offside onside. I appreciate that. I think that's fine. Hopefully by the end of the season, you don't have to do that as much as the athletes get a little more comfortable in the field. But these players can substitute on this side of center and not go offside. And yeah, that's the offsides. When an official recognizes an offside, it may not be an immediate whistle. Particularly if the attack's about to drive to goal, we don't want to kill that scoring play. So officials are going to put their hand up. It's a full palm, not a one finger, hand up when they identify an offside. And then let's say the attack takes a good shot, and the offside is corrected, play will be allowed to continue. But if it's not, then it's going to be whistle and the ball's going to get set up right here where this teal player is standing. That's where all of our offsides are going to get set up if the ball was inside the AFA. But again, 4v4 goalkeepers. Goalkeepers may not cross the restraining line. So I'm sorry, my little homies in goal, you may not cross the center line. Now, if a goalkeeper ran all the way up into the center circle, and there was an empty net at the other side of the field, they may absolutely shoot at the goal. So a goalie could score a goal. Actually, no, because they have to have an attempted pass. So that won't work in U9, my apologies. In real lacrosse, that would be fine. In real lacrosse, goalies are allowed to go up to the far restraining line because there's 2 restraining lines on a full field. But for U9, I guess a goalie goal won't really be possible. But a goalie assist, absolutely, and highly encouraged. But the goalie is not allowed to cross the center restraining line. Let's talk about those goalies a little bit more, and our goal specific goalie and goal circle rules. So in U9 and U11, the goalie has to be the one to clear the ball after a goal. We always have to have a goalie on the field at these levels because of that pass rule. There's nothing worse than shooting on an open net. Like it's just not fun if you don't have a goalie. So by rule, U9, U11, you have to have a goalie on the field at all times. The only time the goalie has to be the one to clear the ball out of the goal circle is after a goal. We want goalies to practice clearing the ball. And so for the last number of seasons, we've had rules specifically saying if there was a loose ball in the goal circle, only the goalie could clear that out. But the rules have changed in the game, and there's lots of instances where defense make really great plays because defense are allowed to move through the goal circle, so long as they don't stand in there and become a tree. And so if there's a loose ball sitting there, we want defense to be able to run through that ground ball and pick up that ground ball and run with the ball. So long as it's not after a goal, that's going to be fine. But after a goal, we need the goalie to be the one clearing, and they have to clear overhand. But yeah, defense may run through the goal circle, may pick up a loose ball in the goal circle. They can be in there with the goalie. That is legal. Once the goalie or one of their defenders has possession of the ball, which means that if it's the goalie, the ball is either trapped under their stick, like they've made a save, the ball hit the ground, then they trapped it with their body or with their stick. Or if it's a defender or the goalkeeper, it's in their stick. They physically have possession of the ball. They're going to have 5 seconds to clear. So the officials at this point are going to do a nice high arm chop. It's going to be like high in the air and count to 5. And versus the 5-second defense one, it's a nice low arm chop. So those are the differences for the 5-second defense and the 5-second in the goal circle counts. And if you're starting to see how much the officials have to do with their arms and these poor little 14-year-olds, bear with us here. Some of them really nail it though, I'll tell you. And goalies are only allowed to smother the ball, to trap the ball under their stick or under their body when the ball is inside the goal circle. So I'm not positive on the men's field rule, but I've seen it happen, or in box. If the goalie's inside the goal circle and the ball is outside, they might trap the ball with other people trying to go for it, but that's not legal in women's field lacrosse. That's called withholding the ball, and we'll get into that rule soon. But if the ball's inside the goal circle, the goalie may absolutely trap that ball. The question I'm getting in the chat is it 5 seconds from the goal itself or when the goalie picks up or retrieves the ball from the net? So 2 separate things here. Let's say the goalie makes a save. So big save, ball's in their stick. As soon as they have possession, the 5-second count is going to start. Alternatively, after a goal, ball's in the back of the net, might take the goalie 1 or 2 seconds to fish the ball out. The official's going to blow their whistle when they see the goalie's ready. They have possession of the ball in their stick. At the whistle, they have 5 seconds. What happens is that at 3 seconds, this poor 8-year-old is going to absolutely panic if they haven't done this before. All they have to do is step out of the goal circle. Just like with the 5-second defense rule, if the goalie still has possession when the official says 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the goal circle violation. We want goalkeepers to be moving the ball up the field and playing athletically. So that's why they can't stay in there forever. But all they have to do if they start to panic is step out. They can run, they can stand right outside, so long as both feet are out, they're not grounded inside when the official says 5 seconds. So it's 5 seconds from possession. And again, possession is considered to trap the ball. So what you might also see is a goalie makes a save, it drops to the ground, they smother it, and then everyone's like, yeah, good save. The official will give them a second, but like as soon as they realize somebody's trying to stall, goalie should be encouraged to pick up the ball. The official might just put the count on. So if it's trapped under the goalie's stick or if it's in possession in the stick, that's when the 5 seconds is going to start to count. I have another question about the touch-up rule after a goal. So the question is there a touch-up rule after a team scores where all 4 offensive players need to run and touch the restraining line while the goalie clears? Yes. This has been in play for a couple of seasons in under 9 and under 11 now. That's absolutely still a rule. Players may not redefend. So the attacking team that just scored, they score, they celebrate, woo, they run up to center, or they go substitute, and then their teammate that's coming on the field or that player who touched up at center can come back. If a coach calls a timeout after a goal, which is perfectly allowed, the attacking team's going to start at center on the restart to mimic that touchback. Jeff, I hope that answers your question. I'll assume it does unless there's any other questions. Okay. So those are our goalie stuff. There's a couple more things because we're women's lacrosse, so let's be more complicated. Goalies are considered thanks, Jeff, that they are in the goal circle when at least 1 foot is on the goal circle line. So again, if the official's at 3, 4, and they're still straddling the line, that's still in. So we want the goalies to make a save, look upfield, be nice and big, clear that ball out quickly, very similar to sixes, or be athletic and possess the ball outside of the goal circle, just like one of their teammates has to. Goaltending can be an incredible position in this game. It's super fun. I absolutely miss it terribly, but it's most fun when it's athletic, and it's most fun when you get to be the 5th defender. So I would highly encourage your coaches to think of your goalies as defense. It's a really fun way to get the kids engaged at particularly the U9 level when they're kind of fearless, which is great. Once the goalie leaves the goal circle, so they have possession of the ball, they made a huge save. They leave the goal circle with the ball because the 5-second count was almost up. They have to be played before they're allowed to go back into the goal circle with possession of the ball. So played means somebody checks them, which in U9 we know is not possible. It's not legal to check in U9. So the only way the goalie is allowed back in the goal circle with the ball is if they pass to a teammate while they're outside, they get the ball back, and then they can roll the ball into the goal circle and fall it in. You're not allowed to walk across the line. My recommendation to coaches, don't do this. It's going to be gone from our game in a couple of years. It's already gone from sixes. Unless you're being like crazy, because we can't make contact, you'd probably be in a better position to stall the ball in the attacking end of the field than you would be around your own goal, where, one missed pass makes a mistake. So yes, technically, if your goalie passes to a teammate, receives the ball back, they can then toss the ball into the back of the goal, use their hand to put it in their stick and have another 5 seconds, or they can roll it into the back of the goal, pick it up and have another 5 seconds. But I promise you, your under 9 players will probably make a mistake, not be played, and then it's a goal circle violation. So wouldn't recommend it, but it is available to them if they needed to. It's how you use the rules that are in play, right? And then specific to U9 and U11, because we have these passing rules, the 1 attempted pass rule in U9 specifically, when the attacking team has the ball and the goalie makes the decision to leave the net, we as an organization had to make a decision about what happens. So what was happening was that goalies who, like I just advocated for, were becoming the 5th defender, but they were doing that with impunity at U9 and at U11 a couple of seasons ago. So that's why we've implemented this goalkeeper leaving the goal circle rule. So when the attacking team has the ball, they're in possession of the ball, and the goalie decides to leave the goal circle, it's perfectly legal, but the officials are going to give the attacking team that 1 pass. Because otherwise, defense is legitimately playing up a player and it's not fun. And it's not what happens in real lacrosse. In real lacrosse, if a goalkeeper leaves the net or leaves the goal circle, that's an open net for an attacking team to potentially shoot and score on. So what we're trying to do is mimic that decision making that has to go into that moment. So if a goalie wants to leave the net to go for an interception, fantastic. That's great. But as soon as they leave the goal circle, they've made that decision to leave their net open. So the officials are going to grant the attacking team 1 pass. If the goalie makes the interception, perfect. Hand goes down, because that hand's going to go down every time the other team starts to possess the ball. The exception to granting the attacking team a pass is if the defensive team, including the goalie, has possession of the ball, or they were the last team to possess the ball. If the attacking team were to then recover, the goalie isn't on, let's say goalie made a save, 5-second count goes on, they step out to avoid getting called in 5 seconds, but then they miss the clear and the ball gets intercepted by the attack. We're not going to give the attacking team 1 automatic pass just because the goalie's out. The defensive team was the last team to touch the ball. The goalie has to go back into their goal circle. And then if they choose to leave from there, then the attack would be granted 1 pass. I promise in practice, that's not as complicated as it sounds. It's really just giving players an opportunity to be athletic and goalies an opportunity to make decisions that have consequences, instead of, coaches deciding we have a 5th defender with impunity. So that's where that's coming from. Minor fouls. And we're still making good time here. Minor fouls. So anytime a minor foul occurs, and again, these are fouls that are mostly about fairness in the game, the person who committed the foul is going to move 4 meters to the side of the ball. That's how that's going to work. Very common minor fouls in U9 might be illegal procedure. So that's anything from illegal equipment. Under 9 players, please don't get your ears pierced 6 weeks before the season. You may not wear jewelry. Jewelry may not be taped. I have seen players sit entire games out because they refuse to take their earrings out. What a shame and what a pity. This is predictable. Do not wear jewelry to games. You are not allowed to wear jewelry to an OWFL game. The exceptions are religious exemptions. Any player wearing a religious exemption item, go for it. It must be taped. We have athletes who wear like a leather band as part of a religion, no problem, tape it, cool. But anything else, and the earrings that you purchased at Claire's, most likely not a religious exemption. So please don't try and abuse that. But illegal equipment and illegal procedure signals like this. Jewelry, no taping jewelry, but religious jewelry is fine. Our rulebook actually says you can wear wedding rings, not a U9 problem. Illegal draw. So the two players are set up on the draw and one of them goes before the whistle. That's not drawing legally, so that's going to be a minor foul for illegal procedure. Having too many players on the field is an illegal substitution, or somebody getting really excited and running onto the field too early, that's illegal subs. Players are not allowed to throw their sticks. So it's a minor foul if you were, let's say, trying to throw your stick to prevent a ball from going in your net. It's a major foul if you throw your stick at another player. But that's the thrown stick illegal procedure. New this year, body balls, again, not a foul. So you may kick the ball anywhere on the field to your advantage, to an open teammate, totally fine. You may not kick the ball into an open net. That's not going to count as a goal. The ball has to go off from a stick or from a defensive player. And also it used to be a foul if goalie scored, which insane. Goalies may score. Goalies may score legally, so long as that one attempted pass has been observed in U9. Handball is a minor foul, so players may not touch the ball with their hand or with their thumb while it's in their stick, while it's on the ground, no hands. And withholding the ball is new for U9. I will dig into this one in more detail. If you are somebody who has been around the game for a long time, you're going to recognize a couple of fouls as being very specific to women's field lacrosse. One of them is empty stick checking, and one of them is covering. And withholding the ball is a new version of covering that I'm absolutely thrilled about. It's going to absolutely change how we have to teach our players to play. I know it's going to cause some confusion the first few weekends, and people are going to be like, that's a cover. No, it's not, because covering has been taken out of the game and replaced with this. So withholding the ball is as follows. If an opponent is able to make a play for the ball, which means they were able if they were able to make a legal play on the ball, which means they were able to pick up a ground ball, a player must not trap a loose ball on the ground with their cross longer than is necessary to control the ball and pick it up in one continuous motion. Raking the ball is permitted. So for you guys that are coming from past seasons, or maybe you played, you're coming back to the game after a while, you were never allowed to cover the ball ever with your stick in women's field lacrosse. And so there were all these whistles, particularly at under 9 levels, where, the kids try and go for a ground ball, but maybe their stick's on top of it. If somebody else was trying to pick up that ball as well, like tweet, it's a crappy little call. It's a minor, nitpicky foul. Now, if somebody's stick goes over the ball for a second, it's not a foul, so long as they rake it back. So if this was the ball, you rake it back to bring it into your stick. It is by rule officially legal, which is super exciting. If it were me coaching under 9, I would highly recommend still teaching your players to scoop through, or, dirt to the skirt, or skirt to the dirt, that type of stuff, run through your ground balls, because that's just better lacrosse play. But we're going to have fewer whistles for those little nitpicky covering fouls, because they're no longer a foul in the game. A player must not withhold the ball from play with any part of their body. So somebody sitting on the ball, that's going to be a turnover to the opponent. And players must not withhold the ball from play in any other manner. Again, this only matters if somebody from the opposite team is trying to pick up that ground ball. So if the ball goes all the way out to the corner and a player traps it and no one is within a stick length of them, technically that's perfectly legal. It's not great lacrosse, but it's legal. But if somebody's trying to challenge you for a ground ball, you can cover the ball for a quick second to pick it up. It's not the end of the world anymore, which is really exciting. And again, goalies may trap the ball inside their goal circle. Any questions about withholding the ball? This one I know is going to be a hot button the first couple of weekends. Same with at the upper levels, empty stick checks have changed. Obviously for under 9, there's no stick checking, so that's still going to be a foul. But there's been some changes to some minor fouls, which are really cool. And it really makes my lacrosse nerd hat like get real excited. So speaking of major fouls, so that's our minor fouls. So those are very common minor fouls. And again, if a minor foul occurs, the person who does it doesn't have to go off the field, nothing like that. They just go 4 meters to the side of the ball and we restart play. Major fouls. So these are ones that are more safety oriented. And you might look at some of these and be like, there's no way that that's important to my kid's safety. But think of the hard yellow ball that has permanently bruised my shins. You absolutely want to think safety when it comes to this game. It's how we keep ourselves away from having to wear more equipment. Any major foul is going to go 4 meters behind instead of 4 meters to the side of the ball carrier, to give the ball carrier that much more of an advantage because the foul was more severe. And generally speaking, there's 2 broad types of major fouls in real lacrosse. The first would be those that are oriented around displacing somebody else. So we call those illegal contact fouls. And that would be anything from pushing with your body or with your stick. That would be detaining somebody, so using your stick to hold somebody outside your body. Again, not permitted at U9, there's no contact. And reminder that contact is only permitted within the advantage flag area, that big blue space around the net, semicircle above, rectangle below the goal line. But any contact in real lacrosse is legal, but it's when somebody is displaced or that 50-50 contact becomes 60-40, 70-30, that's when fouls occur in real lacrosse. So those are our displacement fouls. And then there's also lots of fouls possible and oriented around unsafe checking practices. So we won't get bogged down in those in this call. If you're curious about those, I just wrote the U13 presentation today. We're going to do a lot more on stick checking in the U13 presentation. And also, I haven't really hyped up our YouTube channel, but if you go to the OWFL YouTube channel, or OWFL officiating YouTube channel, I have very specific videos on dangerous check, which is the broad category of illegal checking fouls, and legal stick checks. So please check that out if you have any questions or if you're curious to learn more. Empty stick checking, like I mentioned, is a minor foul in real lacrosse, but because there's no stick checking in under 9, any stick check will be a foul, and it will be penalized as a major foul in under 9, just like in U11. But as you get up to the upper levels, empty stick checks are gone, which is really cool. Held stick checks are still a foul. So that's when I go to check somebody and I hold their stick down for a quick second. That's a foul, because it's unsafe. Horizontal sticks. So on defense, no horizontal stick to body contact is going to be permitted at any time, even within the advantage flag area. This is the same from U9 through U15. And this is actually one of the only rules that's consistent up to U15 that's a modification. The intent here is to eliminate the middle of a shaft of a defender's stick from contacting the ball carrier's arm. If you look at Taylor, who's the official in this GIF, can you imagine somebody with a stick doing that to you repeatedly? It really sucks. So we're trying to teach that defense should be played with a stick up, not with a stick horizontal. It's a bit of a crutch for defensive players who are new or maybe get caught in bad footing. So we're trying to eliminate that. So any horizontal stick to body contact in any of these levels, U9 through U15, I'm encouraging our officials to make that call immediately. It should not be happening. It really can't hurt. You'll see some of the older girls with some bruises on their arms. It's from stuff like this. So we're trying to get that out of the game. To dive into that a little bit more, what do we mean by horizontal? We use 30 degrees as our marker. Now, that's a bit of an arbitrary number to a 14-year-old who's running up and down a field as an official. So this is how we train them to try and recognize that. So to me, a 45 angle is easier to recognize. Anything beneath a 45, we're going to tell the kids, sticks up, get your stick up, 17 blue, stick up, stick up. You will hear the officials on the field trying to encourage them to get away from horizontal sticks that might be on the verge of being around 30. But anything that's like flat and horizontal, that's going to be our immediate whistles. To see some examples. So this is a 30-degree marker in these pictures. This defender here at LIU, great defense. They're in contact, so this would be permitted in the advantage flag area. This player with the ball is driving to goal trying to score, but only if that stick is not horizontal is it fine in U9. This one in the middle, this Akron player, I think they're playing Youngstown. This is where we would be encouraging them, stick up, white, 4, put your stick up, stick in the air, stick higher. It's on that borderline. We want to see them get it higher. We don't want to blow the whistle unnecessarily. And then this Virginia versus Syracuse example, this player's stick is below 180, it's below 180 degrees, it's less than horizontal, that's a foul. That should be called right away. We want this to become automatic for our officials. We want our players to anticipate that this is called consistently so that they can learn and encourage themselves to play with their sticks up. And again, body to body, so my hands to your body or my stick to your body is only legal within these 3 spaces. And this is a rule specific only to U9, U11. Shooting space. The most complicated of our rules. And the rule that makes people, I would say, question what we're doing here. If you think about real lacrosse or real women's lacrosse, no equipment, no helmets. So we're not encouraging any of our athletes to soak shots that aren't wearing goalkeeping equipment, to take shots for the team. That's not something you're going to see happen on the women's side. What we have to protect players, both defensive and offensive, from getting hit with shots is this shooting space rule. Linked in the bottom of this page and of all of the shooting space pages we're going to go through is a video dedicated to outlining shooting space with real examples of game film. Highly recommend checking that one out. If you check out any video, I would always recommend that it's the shooting space and dangerous profile video. Shooting space is when an attacking player shoots the ball and there's a defensive player in the lane who's not playing good defense. They're not guarding somebody. And so they're just blocking up that space. That is a defensive foul. It is an immediate whistle. This is incredibly difficult for new officials to wrap their heads around. It's one of the reasons why we want to keep a yellow ball at U9. A pink soft squishy ball at U9 so that player safety is in mind. But as officials get the hang of this throughout the season, as you as spectators start to recognize it, this is where we're going with the shooting space rule, is a player safety thing, and it's a defensive foul. So it's in effect when the attacking team is in possession of the ball within the 15-meter marking area. So the space above the goal line, that big 15-meter semicircle. And the rule states that a defender must not block or guard the goal for the purpose of obstructing the lane between the shooter and the edges of the goal circle. Obstructing the shooting space or blocking the shooting space, it denies the attacking team the opportunity to shoot safely. A defender is not in shooting space if they are marking an opponent within a stick length or standing below the goal line extended. So what does that look like? This diagram is taken directly from the rule book. I really love this diagram. So each of these yellow balls are an example, or each of these yellow dots are a ball. So if the ball carrier stepped inside the 15-meter marking area, and this is where they were when they shot, any defensive player who was posted up in this space, so let's say there's a defensive player here, they are not within a stick length of their nearest opponent, and they're within the shooter and the edges of the goal circle, that would be a shooting space call. Similar to this one, these ones are probably a little bit more common. Defensive player standing right here in this middle lane, not within a stick length of an opponent, and this shooter wants to shoot, that's a shooting space foul. It's eligible anywhere within that 15-meter marking area. I've never seen your U9 athletes should not be shooting from the 15-meter marking area line. Very few dual athletes can shoot effectively from the 15-meter marking area line. But this is a tougher one. Technically still shooting space if somebody was unmarked here and this player is making an attempt to shoot. But if a defensive player was standing here below the goal line extended, which is this line going all the way out, that is not shooting space. Alternatively, if this was the defender, and this was their attacker, this defensive player is no longer considered in shooting space. They're within a stick length of their attacker. I can show you a little bit of a better example of this in practice. So this is taken from the Canada-US match at the Towson World Championships in 2021. And the American shooter is inside the 11-meter fan and wants to shoot. But this Canadian defender is absolutely 100% outside of a stick length of their nearest attacker and clearly obstructing the space to goal. They are between the shooter and the goalkeeper. They're between the edges of the goal circle. This is shooting space. Another example, this player, number 24 for Canada, as soon as they step on that line, they're eligible, right? So they've stepped on the line, nice big shooting lane between them and the edges of the goal circle. And again, this American defender is not within a stick length of their nearest opponent. So this is shooting space. That whistle should be immediate. Turn off the pen here. There is an exception because shooting space is an immediate whistle. If the whistle was blown for a shooting space violation between the moment the ball was shot or released and a goal is scored, the goal will count. So let's do that again. Shot, whistle for the shooting space violation, goal, the goal counts. So coaches, you want to be working with your goalies to encourage them to play to the save, not to the whistle. Shooting space technically can extend just beyond the time the whistle's blown. So there's a shot, whistle for shooting space, and that shot goes in the goal, that goal counts. Alternatively, if there's a shot, the goalie makes a save, there's a shot, the whistle is blown for shooting space, and the goalie makes the save, that save is going to count. We're going to restart play with the goalkeeper in their goal circle. And then the third scenario, and if the ball hits the post, it's also going to reset with the goal circle, with the goalie in the goal circle. And then in all other scenarios, which means if the shot happened, the whistle was blown and the ball missed the net, the shooter gets the ball back at a free position at the nearest hash mark. So that's the shooting space exception. 3 seconds, and we are nearing the end here, you guys. I'd say less than 10 minutes to go. But if you have to run, I totally understand. For 3 seconds, 3 seconds goes hand in hand with shooting space. And this is the rule that's really similar to 3 in the key in basketball. I've done a video on 3 seconds. I wasn't able to do one last year, but I did have time to do one this year. It's linked in this document. Please check it out if you want to see more. The video specifically compares it to basketball. So hopefully that's helpful. The 3 seconds rule takes effect when the team crosses the restraining line. So basically in U9, anytime the attacking team's on their attacking end, 3 seconds is eligible. And what happens when there's a 3 seconds violation is that a defender has remained in the 11-meter fan for more than 3 seconds outside of a stick length of their nearest opponent. So they're not blocking the shooting lane, but they're gumming up the space in front of the goal and preventing an attacker from driving to goal, preventing an attacking team from starting a scoring play. Little Susie is going to post up inside the fan and not understand that she's supposed to be guarding somebody 1v1 and potentially going to be in 3 seconds a lot this summer. We try and encourage this to get called on scoring plays, but at U9, we're looking for our officials to call it when it's happening. If we look at our shooting space example, yes, this is shooting lanes. So this is specific to shooting space, but this athlete's in shooting space because they were in 3 seconds. This player in white just sprinted all the way up the field with the ball And you've got to think that from the time the restraining line was back here to the fan being here, it's probably a couple seconds. And then she's inside the marking area line. That's got to be 3 seconds. Usually these fouls go hand in hand, and they're both connected by being outside of a stick length of your nearest opponent. Same thing here. This white defender is attempting to gum up the space and stop this red attacker from driving to goal. Likely they were potentially in 3 seconds, as well as now because somebody's trying to shoot, they're in shooting space. So that's the 3 seconds rule in a nutshell. Cards, finally cards. So at all levels of women's field lacrosse, like in soccer, a player might be issued a yellow card, a yellow-red card, or a straight red card for more serious violations of the rules. More dangerous, more disrespectful, those types of things are going to fall into these categories. We use 2 colors at all levels, yellow and red. If somebody gets a yellow card, it's going to be a 2-minute time spent off the field. At the end of the 2 minutes, it's non-releasable after a goal. So you play the full 2 minutes off down a person on the field. Your team is down a person. Once your 2-minute card is expired, you may come back on the field. If you then get a second yellow card at some point during the game, you are expelled from the game. The official will show you a yellow and a red card together. That's a 5-minute violation to your team, and you are gone from the game. You are expelled from the game. And then a red card, a straight red card, where the official is just showing a red card. That's it. That's a 10-minute man down situation or woman down situation for your team, and you are immediately expelled from the game. There's also a 1-game suspension that comes with all red cards, no questions asked. This is for truly reprehensible play, for targeting, for slurs, for serious instances of violence or misconduct, for disregard for your opponent's safety. Red cards can be issued for those types of violations. Yellow cards, that's when you'll see this list down here. So these 7 instances at the bottom of your screen. Checking somebody with your stick to the head, that is an automatic yellow card. It's unsafe play. A swipe is an incredibly uncontrolled, usually it's a huge stick check, or an attempt at a stick check. It doesn't have to make contact to be considered a foul, but that's a mandatory card. Dangerous follow through, which is taking a shot and smacking somebody with your stick on the follow through, or a pass, smacking somebody with your stick on a pass. That is an automatic yellow card. And a dangerous repel. So hand in hand with that shooting space, if somebody's in your shooting lane as a shooter, it's your responsibility to not shoot. There's somebody in your lane. So if you propel the ball into a crowd of people or into somebody standing in shooting space, it's actually going to be your foul in addition to their foul. So propels are dangerously launching the ball. Follow throughs are making contact with your stick on a pass or a shot. All yellow cards. And then any of the fouls we've talked about tonight, like illegal contact, so that horizontal stick. Oh, my cat's made an appearance. Those can be upgraded. So cross-checking that you might see in box lacrosse, that's a yellow card in women's field lacrosse. It's minor, not minor, but instances of misconduct, swearing at somebody, that type of thing, that could be a yellow card. Retaliating against a player, that could be a yellow card. And then repeated major fouls. Your team is just constantly pushing everybody on the other team. Card. That's going to be a card. We were trying to, they're called warning cards. We are warning people against the actions that are occurring on the field. They are dangerous. They do not belong in our game. Last section for tonight. You are going to see officials carry a purple card for the first time this year. If you're familiar with volleyball, this is inspired by the OVA volleyball policy on purple cards, and it's something that we in the OWFL are going to be trialing in 2025. It specifically applies to spectator behavior, and we will be launching an information campaign through social media, through our website, to try and inform our community members about this. But moving forward, we're trying to find a way to better, enforce policies for respect in sport that we've always had in the OWFL, that we've always had challenges actually enforcing and having people abide by. So if there is misconduct coming from the sidelines, abusive behavior coming towards a player or towards an official from the sidelines, the first thing an official could do is stop the clock and turn and tell that person to stop. They can give a verbal warning. We hope that that's as far as this has to escalate. The second stage, and this, they don't have to be progressive. You don't have to give a warning and then give a purple card. But if something egregious is said, then a purple card could be warranted. Your team will play down for 2 minutes, and that is a warning to the sidelines. The behavior needs to stop. If something really egregious happens on the sidelines, fighting, specifically targeting an official with abusive language, that spectator will be asked to leave, shown a yellow or shown a purple and red card, and not be permitted back for the remainder of the day. Usually your U9 teams will play 2 games in a day. We do not want to see them back at the field. I'm cautious that the us putting this policy out there will be taken as us trying to over police the sidelines. This is not something that's a huge issue most of the time, but it's increasingly a problem in all sectors of our game, and we're trying to be proactive so that people understand what's acceptable behavior and what's not. Particularly at U9 and U11, where your officials are going to be under 18 years old for like 90% of your games, yelling at a child is inappropriate, and we don't want to set that example for our under 9 athletes. So my goal is that none of our officials have to use our purple cards all season. They're just going to pretty sit in our pockets. But we have increasingly seen instances of inappropriate behavior coming from the sidelines. And instead of going, I don't know how to deal with this, that's what this policy is meant to address. The Stay On Side campaign is what we're going to be launching. More information about that to follow. But this is the gist of the new purple card policy. Self-start. I lied, this is the last piece. We've talked a lot about penalty administration tonight. I blow my whistle as an official for a foul. Play's then gonna restart. A player can self-start, which means they were entitled to the ball. They just get to start running if they want to. You're not allowed to they don't have to wait for another whistle to tell them to go. You can self-start when any time on the field, any boundary ball, you can self-start, any midfield foul, you can self-start. You only can't self-start if there was a timeout, the clock was stopped for a timeout, there's an illegal draw, an offside, or any fouls occurring in that semicircle advantage flag area, that blue space. In these instances, a player has to wait for a whistle. And new this year, the clock is going to stop under 30 seconds for all 4 quarters, same as every other year we've done U9. But a player can still self-start under 30 seconds. If you're timekeeping, you'll have to be paying attention. We'll work with our timekeepers this year to recognize if a player starts moving, they should restart the clock. Our learning outcomes tonight were to provide you with a brief overview of the game of women's field lacrosse and our history, to provide an overview of the OWFL and our programming. Wanted to introduce U9, including the rule modifications that are specific to this level of play, and hopefully get you a little bit more prepared for the 2025 season. I really want to build avenues for spectators and coaches to be better informed, and to be able to find resources to help encourage a positive environment for not only our officials, but our athletes on the field. And we want to foster an appreciation for this phenomenal game. So thank you for joining us tonight. My last request to you as a call taker is that we did not go over every foul. We did not talk about every concept. There were lots of exceptions that we couldn't get to tonight. So my rule for my officials is that they should never start a sentence with Hannah said, and then insert something incorrect here, or something I did say that is possibly also just wrong. The things that are in writing are what we always defer to. I always say to my officials, what does your rule book say? Our OWFL rule modifications are part of our rule book. So please don't tell somebody, well, Hannah said, please use the resources that are printed so that we're being nice and consistent with our messaging. And know that I'm a student of the game too. I make mistakes, but hopefully those documents are correct. And we may always print updates as we find stuff that needs to be adjusted as we go through the season. But please do share this information, these resources, this call, our YouTube channel, with your athletes, with your fellow coaches, with your spectators, with your parents, anybody who wants to learn more about the game. I highly encourage them to do so. It is an absolutely beautiful sport, that once you get playing it, all of this stuff just kind of comes together. So really hoping that you have a wonderful 2025 season, and all the best to your U9 programs moving forward. I will stay on for some extra calls if anybody has any questions. Sweet. Awesome. I don't see any questions. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your evening. I'm going to stop the recording.